Yeah. So today we will see mathematical modeling. We will continue the discussion of mathematical modeling. So in the last class we mentioned that, or we discussed that mathematical modeling has mathematical principles and mathematical methods. So as we discussed in detail about the various mathematical principles. They were actually phrased as some questions. So the questions are like, what do we try to prove? What do we try to achieve? What do we want to know? Or there will be some parameters which are known to you. So some, what are the known facts? And when we do some experiment and all, we will usually assume something. So what are the assumptions, and what are the known facts, and what is the prediction, and how do we verify the prediction, and how do we proceed, how do we finally evaluate all those stuff. So that was about the mathematical principles. So today we will see some of the mathematical techniques. So these methods of mathematical modeling, they are called techniques, and they include, and they are mainly dimensional homogeneity, abstraction and scaling, conservation and balance principles, consequences of linearity. We will see one by one. So first of all, dimensional homogeneity. So what it means is, in brief, it says that every equation we use, we'll have to use some equations here and there in mathematical modeling, and that must be dimensionally homogeneous or dimensionally consistent. So what is dimensionally what we mean by an equation being dimensionally homogeneous or dimensionally consistent? So this procedure is known as dimensional analysis, and so every term, say for example, every term in an energy equation, so we that will have the dimensions of energy, or every term in a mass equation, so that will have the dimension of mass. Say for example, uh, what are the before that we will see what are the fundamental what are the different physical quantities we use to model. So they are called fundamental and derived. Fundamental quantities are, in physics you have studied, mass, length and time are usually taken as the fundamental mechanical dimensions or variables of mass. So they mass, length and time, they are the fundamental or primary quantities. So why they can be measured on a scale that is independent of those chosen for any other fundamental quantity, because mass is independent of length, length is independent of time, length is independent of mass. So they are called fundamental or primary quantities. And so we have derived quantities also. Derived quantities generally follow from dimensions of physical laws, or they are expressed in terms of the dimensions that were chosen as fundamental. Say force is a derived quantity. So how do we represent force? Using Newton's laws of motion, we know that force is F is equal to ma, isn't it? So what are the dimensions of force? If you say, dimensions of force are, because force is equal to mass into acceleration, so acceleration you can represent as length divided by time square. So dimensions of force is mass into length divided by the square of time. So this is how we represent. So within square bracket we write, so dimension. So we, how to read this? Dimension of force, dimension of F is equal to force equal to m into L divided by t square. So we are in fact representing this force, which is a derived quantity, in terms of the fundamental quantities. So fundamental quantities are those which are independent of each other. So mass, length and time, they are usually taken as the fundamental properties, fundamental quantity. So that is the dimension. So we are coming to the dimensional homogeneity, or how we say that an equation is dimensionally homogeneous or dimensionally consistent. So, yes, the length, if you look at, you can represent in meter, you can represent in centimeter or feet. For example, a soccer field, a football field width, if you can specify 60 meter, 6,000 centimeter, or if you want to specify that in feet, it is 197 feet approximately. So different units can be used. So if we consider one equation, a familiar model from mechanics, the speed of a particle v due to the acceleration of gravity g when dropped from a height h. So that is given is as v is equal to square root of 2 into g into h. So this equation you have you might have studied, or you might remember this. So what is this? The speed of a particle due to the acceleration of gravity g, and when it is dropped from a height of g. Now consider this equation, and we will analyze it dimensionally. So now look at both sides of the equation has the net physical dimension. What is the net physical dimension? Velocity. Velocity is equal to, velocity is, the distance covered per unit second. So meter per second, that is a unit. So dimension is length divided by time. So that is the left side, velocity. Velocity is length divided by time. Now look at the right side. Square root of 2 into g into h. G is the acceleration due to gravity, and that is meter per second square. And so meter per second square, how do we represent? Length divided by time square, and there is and that should be multiplied with h. So h is height, so we will represent it height as length. So g into h, length square divided by time square. Length square divided by time square. Square root of that will become length by time. So right hand side also becomes length by time. So that is the meaning. Both sides of the equation have the net physical dimensions L by T. So we call that particular equation as dimensionally homogeneous. Why? Because it is totally independent of the system of units being used to measure V, G, and H. So that means length can be, you can measure the length in centimeter, you can measure the length in meter, no problem. You can take second, you can time, you can measure in second, time you can measure in millisecond, nanosecond, microsecond, whatever unit you feel comfortable, you can use throughout the equation, not for one term, throughout the term. Wherever length is there, you can use centimeter or feet or meter. Okay, so that is why it is called dimensionally homogeneous. Now we try to modify that equation a little bit. So V is equal to square root of 2 into G into H. So square root of 2 into G, if you take G as 9.8 meter per second square. So in this equation, we are modifying that square root of 2 into 9.8 into H. So that is roughly equal to 4.43 into square root of H. Now look at this equation 12.4. That equation is numbered as 12.4. So V meter per second square, V in meter per second is equal to 4.43 into square root of H. Now let us see whether this particular equation is dimensionally homogeneous. So can you say whether this is will it be dimensionally homogeneous? Any guess from you? In the previous equation, when B is equal to square root of 2gh.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. One
Sir?
more.
Sir, ശ്രീവേദിന് കയറാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല എന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്.
No, I am not doing anything. No, I am not doing anything. Usually, yeah, let him try once again. I think last time also he had the same issue. Somebody was telling, no, somebody couldn't enter.
Started.
Hey, let him try once again. No issue for him to enter, no issue. Yeah. So dimensionally homogeneous V is equal to square root of 2 into 9.8 into H, so 4.43 into square root of H. So here H should be measured in meter. So that is the meaning. Equation 12.4 is valid only when the particle's height is measured in meter, because we have derived this equation using G in meter per second square. So ultimately that H has to be replaced with some value in meter. So and again, V is equal to square root of 2 into G into H. So if you take G in feet per second square, so 9.8 meter per second square is approximately equal to 32.17 feet per second square. So if you replace that G with 32.17 in the original equation, V in feet per second, you will get as V2 into 32.17 into H. So that is equal to 8.02 into square root of H. So this equation that we call as 12.5 is valid when we measure the particle's height in feet. So 12.4, equation number 12.4 and equation number 12.5 are dimensionally heterogeneous. They are not dimensionally homogeneous, because they specify they want the parameter, particular variable, to be represented in a specific unit, not some unit which we want, isn't it? So here the height has to be specified in feet. In the previous case, equation number 12.4, the height has to be specified in meter. So that is why these are dimensionally heterogeneous. So second mathematical principle is abstraction and scaling. So abstraction and scaling is, so it depends upon the details that we want to, uh, uh, analyze and model. So an important decision in modeling is choosing an appropriate level of detail. This is called abstraction. So it considers a fundamental question about why a model is being sought or developed. What is the aim of a particular model? So for example, a linear elastic spring. So this is again, we are coming to physics. So we told, you know, mathematical modeling involves a lot about mathematics and physics and science. So usually expressed in terms of Hooke's law. Hooke's law, you might know, F is equal to when you stretch a string by a force F through a distance x, the force generated is equal to F is equal to kx, where k is a constant. That constant depends upon the type of spring that we use. So this is the Hooke's law. Hooke's law, you might remember, and this can be used to model more than just the relation between force and relative extension of a simple coiled spring, how much it extends. So you apply a force F and the spring elongates by a length of x. So how much it elongates, and this, they are represented as an equation which involves a factor k. What is that k? That is called a spring constant. And when we represent that relation between the force and the elongation as an equation, we can say that F is equal to kx. So this is called Hooke's law. Now what we say is this Hooke's law can be used not only to represent, not only to study about spring, but it can be extended to model the behavior of a tall building, how it stands against wind, perhaps to model wind loading, isn't it, the effect of wind on a force, because on a building. So you have a building, so wind, when the wind blows, that is exerting a force on the building. So whether it tilts or whether any deterioration, any deformation in the building, that is related to the stability of the building. So we can study about that using that. There what is the different? Here k will be different. In the first case, k will be spring constant. Here the k will be a constant related to the building, how it is constructed, various factors. So we are not discussing how that constant k is going to be generated, but what we are studying right now is, what we are analyzing is how to analyze how to analyze a particular situation in terms of scaling. Scaling means with the same equation can be applied to spring as well as building, or this can also be used to analyze how the building would respond to an earthquake, isn't it? Earthquake or some tremor comes, how it will respond. The spring model can also be used at a much smaller micro scale. Micro scale means very minuscule levels, to model atomic bonds. We have atom, we have electrons, protons, and electrons revolves around the nucleus. So in contrast with the macro level of building, so the same equation, same spring model can be used to model atomic bonds, and also atomic model which is at the micro scale, and it can also be used to model buildings which is applied at a macro level. So if we can develop or show how the spring constants, so spring constants we need to identify that, depending upon the when it is applied to atomic bonds, that spring constants depends upon the atomic interaction of forces, atomic distances, subatomic particles dimensions, so many other parameters. So we don't worry about that, but we just understand the atomic constant, and that spring constant depends upon these many parameters. So it can also be used to discuss the static load deflection behavior. So ladder step, we know ladders will have so many rungs or steps. So static load deflection, how much force, you have a ladder, and what is the weight the ladder can support, isn't it? We use ladder to climb upon and to reach height. So whether a particular ladder can carry a weight of 100 kilogram or support a person weighing 100 kilogram, 80 kilogram, 120 kilogram, isn't it? So there is a maximum weight that the ladder can support. Now again, the spring equation, Hooke's law, can be used in that particular context as well. So the spring constant k will reflect the stiffness of the step taken as a whole. So this is again an example of scaling. So this interpretation of k incorporates detailed properties of the step, such as the material of which it is made and its dimension, what is the material of material by which we have designed the ladder step, and what is the dimension, what is the length, the breadth, the thickness. Again, all these parameters are affecting the deflection that the step might produce. Even though we try to model this Hooke's law, which is F is equal to kx, to identify and study the deflection of this ladder step, where the constant x depends particularly on the material and the dimension of this step. So we would validate our linear spring models by observing and measuring the respective behaviors of the ladder step or the tall building. So validation is required in the mathematical modeling. It is not that we simply propose a mathematical model and we blindly believe that, but we need to prove it, we need to validate it, we need to verify it. So thus we can use the linear spring. So what is the meaning? Thus we can use the linear spring at both very small micro scales to model atomic bonds, and at very large macro scales for buildings. So another example is modeling an aeroplane in very different ways. So this might be interesting to lay out a flight plan or trajectory. So our aim is to lay out we want to identify the flight plan or trajectory, the path through which the flight moves. In this case, we will consider the aeroplane as a point mass moving with respect to a spherical coordinate system. So we are only interested in modeling the aeroplane as a point mass on a particular point. So why we are modeling the aeroplane as a point mass? Because here the objective is different. Here the aim is different. Aim of modeling is different. What is the modeling purpose? Just to trace the flight plan or trajectory, isn't it? But to model more local effects of air moving around the plane's wing, suppose we want to identify how the plane's wing should be developed. So in that case, our model would have to account for the wing's shape and surface area, because surface area affects the friction and how the wind affects this surface area, all those things, and these parameters should be considered if you want to find out, or if you want to study the effects of air moving around the plane's wings, and ultimately designing an effective wings for a particular plane. So in the first case, it was only about studying the trajectory of a plane. In the second case, it's about studying about the wing architectures and the effects of air moving around wings. So depending upon the model, depending upon the purpose, the parameters that we consider varies, the scale varies, isn't it? The abstraction, the details. Abstraction means what? The details. When we consider an aeroplane as a point mass, it is too much abstracted, because we are converting the aeroplane into a point mass, means only a point. So we don't consider about the aeroplane as a as a vehicle. It has this much length, this much width, this is a shape, and this many passengers. It can carry this many passengers. It has so many seats, electrical system, mechanical system associated with that, or computer system associated, navigation system associated with that. We forget all these details. So that is abstraction. We forget all these details, and we do not consider these details at all, because we consider this particular aeroplane as only a point mass, only a single mass, just a point. Because then why don't we consider those details? Because our aim is to model the trajectory of an aeroplane, to model the trajectory of the aeroplane, or to trace the path. That's it, isn't it? But if you want to study the details, we will include more and more details. So that's the process of abstraction, and that is the process of scaling. So to model the flaps used to control the plane's ascent and descent, how it is affecting when the aeroplane is landing and takeoff, our model would have to include system to control the flaps and account for the wing strength and the vibration response. Again, we consider what we consider depends on the scale on which we choose to model, which again depends on in turn on our dimensions for the intentions for the model. Second, another mathematical principle is conservation and balance principle. So some property of an object or system is being conserved. That is the conservation, some property. So when we develop mathematical models, we often start with statements. So what does that say? Some property of an object is, for example, energy is conserved. When an object is moving, when an object is falling from a height, its static energy is converted into kinetic energy. So conservation of energy. So denoting the physical property being monitored as qt and the independent variable time as t. So time is t, we can write a balance law. What is the balance law? That is for the rate of change of that property. So dqt by dt, where qt is a particular property, maybe a temperature, rate of change of temperature, rate of change of velocity, speed. So that is equal to q in t plus gt minus q out t minus ct. So t is the time, q in is this is the diagrammatic representation. So this is a system boundary. You have a system. So something is coming into the system, that is Q in, the influx, something is going out. Say, for example, we are interested in finding the temperature. So inside the system, so something coming, how temperature is increased due to external factors, and how temperature is decreased due to internal factors, how temperature is reduced, or some property, something is coming into the system, something is going out of the system, and inside the system there may be consumption, inside the system there may be generation. So these parameters, all these parameters we consider, and we've identified the equation. So Q in T and Q out T represent the flow rates of T, that is influx and outflux, influx and efflux, and Gt is the rate at which Qt is generated within the boundary, and Ct is the rate at which Q is consumed within the boundary. So inside the boundary you have consumption, and inside the boundary you have generation, and you have influx and efflux. So considering all these things, we consider this, we generate this equation, rate of change of the particular property. So in cases where there is no generation and no consumption inside the system, obviously in the previous equation G and C will be 0. So the original equation will reduce to dQt divided by dt. So rate of change of Qt is equal to Q in T minus Q out, influx and efflux. So another one is constructing models. So constructing linear models. So linearity is one of the most important concepts in mathematical modeling. And models of device systems are said to be linear when the basic equations, whether algebraic, differential, or integral, are such that the magnitude of their behavior or response is produced directly proportional to the excitation. So in the previous Hooke's law, the same example you can take. So F is directly elongation F is proportional to X, or X is proportional to force applied. So F is proportional to X, and F is equal to K. So when one quantity increases, when the temperature increases, something else, some property also increases. When the pressure increases, that property also increases, isn't it? So that's a linear model. Linear when it is directly proportional. When one quantity is directly proportional to the other, so that is called a linear model. So we are in fact discussing this mathematical model and mathematical principles. So mathematical models are central to design, because we have to be able to predict the behavior of the devices or systems that we are designing. And we have seen mathematical models and mathematical principles and methods. So I stop my class here. So any doubt if you have, you can ask regarding whatever topics we have.